One of the delights of any year is speaking to individuals and musicians like Ray Scott, who will be performing at 8 p.m. at the Jackson River Sports Complex in Covington this Saturday. Welcome, Ray.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to coming back to Covington.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing you once again. And this has been an incredibly busy year for you. We noted at least 4 new songs, albums. What spurred on this creativity? Not that you haven't been creative all these years, but it seems like there's been a spurt of creativity this year.
Yeah, there has been. Obviously, this year being the time to release these songs. The creativity actually kind of came in a couple of 3 years before this. And so this is just kind of the result of getting these things written and recorded and kind of getting a little, business plan, if you will, together to put them out there. But yeah, it's been really busy, and that's been on purpose. Earlier this year, I released an album called Wrong Songs, which is just kind of a collection of sort of off color material, I guess you could say. And I purposefully didn't. I did release a few singles, but I purposefully didn't really try to promote that to mainstream outlets or whatever, because it's an acquired taste, and you got to have a twisted sense of humor. It's so, like I say, it's a little maybe in some situations it might be considered unacceptable, but that was just kind of me having a little adolescent moment and recording some songs that we'd played over the years that people liked. But this new project, we started releasing songs about, I guess 3 months ago. We've released one song a month since then, and tomorrow will be the 4th single from this new upcoming album that comes out in November. There's 2 more songs coming after this one next month and the month after. So,
wow!
So it's basically half the album that we're releasing singles on before the actual album release.
And you enlisted some excellent musicians to join you. What, one on drums and then one on mandolin? Are these people you've known all along, or maybe suggestions from friends?
There are people. Some of them are people I've known and worked with before. A couple of them were, Janae Fleener, for instance. She's won Musician of the Year here in Nashville. She got an ACM award for that. And she plays fiddle and mandolin, and she's really great at it. And of course, drummers, Eddie Bayers, who's a legend. Lonnie Wilson, another legend. I had some great guys playing on this. Jim Moose Brown, who was a songwriter in the studio and road musician, produced it. Jim co-wrote "It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere." The last big gig he had as a musician was recently. He was playing guitar on the road with Bob Seger.
Wow.
But Jim Moose, we call him Moose, but he played acoustic guitar on a lot of it, and he also played keys. He's a really great keyboard player, piano player. So. It was it sounds different than anything I've put out yet. Like I said, there's a lot of mandolin on there and some fiddle, and that's not something I really put on many albums. It's always been straight up Telecaster and steel guitar, for the most part over the years. But, you have to, you got to keep things fresh and try new things. And I just, there's a kind of a rootsy, almost a bluegrassy feel to a couple of tracks that I haven't really had before, and it's but it doesn't take away. I think that it's still country is cornbread. But excited to see how people react to some of it.
In the past, and I find this extremely interesting. When you think of a country singer, you think of the core interest group being North Carolina, maybe Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, Tennessee, this kind of Southeast United States thing. And then I noted that you have performed in Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Norway, and Spain. And somehow I'm having a hard time imagining Europeans getting turned on by primarily a seasoned country United States act. And you
Yeah.
can help us out with it. I mean, how did that all happen?
Well, of course, I'm a little bit more on the traditional side of things, which is what probably was a little bit of a barrier for me in the mainstream country music business from the time I got my deal at Warner Brothers up until now. Luckily, over the years, I've learned that there are a lot of people out there that like the traditional thing, that what they like to term as real country music, um, and Europeans are no different. I mean, a lot of the places I go, most countries over there have people that do speak English. And the one thing that I've discovered over the years is that a lot of Europeans, depending on where you go, really appreciate country music as being this. To them, it's almost exotic. It's a uniquely American art form, and it didn't start over there. And I think a lot of them, became interested in it. I think I've got quite a bit of music that folks can dance to, whether it be two-stepping or line dancing. It's crazy some of the songs I have that people have done line dances for over there. I mean, and I never really, the part of this dream that I had when I was a kid, it never really included playing all over Europe because it just wasn't something that ever was on my radar. But, these days, I'd say a good part of my income and my opportunities come from across the pond. And it's not slowing down. I've already got bookings forming for next year over there, and it's different when you're an independent. And I'm not 25 years old. I'm not one that's going to appeal to the young girls necessarily.
You're only 54. You're going to be 54 in December.
Yeah, that's right, man. But even when I was at Warner Brothers, I was 34 when I signed my deal with them, and even back then, their analytics were kind of telling them that a lot of my audience was male. And I think, I've had more of a male audience than a lot of artists have. And I think part of that is because I've always done my music the way I wanted to do it. A lot of artists that are signed to these big record deals, they're kind of almost forced to sing songs that sort of pander to women. And I don't have anything against that. I mean, I like to write and release a love song, as good as anybody else. But, I think there was just maybe a little irreverence and a little, the storytelling thing I think appeals to guys. So, what it tells me is I can get older, I can keep aging in this business and still do my music, and people will still like it. I think, I hope anyway.
Well, let me ask you a corny question. Two of my favorite Ray Scott songs are Those Jeans and Drinking Beer. Now, I don't know about your sales, and I'm sure you've got probably some kind of a chart that, tells you your most popular. But here's my corny question. What is Ray Scott's favorite song to sing and perform?
Oh, gosh, man, that's a good question. It's hard to really say. There's so many of them that I enjoy doing. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't put them on in the set if I didn't. It's hard to, it's hard to say for sure what the favorite might be. I would say right now, a couple of the new songs are some of my favorites. Like Ripples and another
very
song
good, very good.
Hey Fool is another one I like playing, and part of that is because it's musically a little different than what came before it, and it's new to me. I mean, to be frank, I mean, some of the older stuff I've been playing for a long time, and so it's I know everybody who comes to see me play. I mean, some of these folks go all the way back to 2004 with me, and they want to hear the old stuff, and I always play the old stuff, or at least some of it. But for me, the thing that keeps me excited and keeps me looking forward to the next day is coming up with something new that I think is good, and seeing it resonate with people, and so that's kind of my favorite stuff to do. Like I say, is some of the newer ones. Now I will say that Um, a couple of some of the funnier ones are always favorites of mine, just because it's different to stand there and look out and watch people react line by line of certain songs. So that's a different experience, I think. I mean, and that's kind of coming from the comedic part of things, but you know, I've always loved funny stuff, and man, it ain't easy to write that stuff. It's
Oh,
not
I have
easy to
no
be
doubt.
funny. And so, and I'm sure I have plenty of songs that aren't very funny at all.
Well, I look
Um,
forward to hearing Keeper, which is one
yeah,
of your new ones. And then, before I let you go, one of your new songs, in fact, I believe it's debuts tomorrow on Friday, September 1st, is called Long Black Cadillac. How
yeah.
about telling the audience, where did that come from?
Well, it's funny. A few years back, my wife and I were walking out of a restaurant, and we saw an old hearse in the parking lot. Now, it looked like one of those old hearses that somebody maybe bought and fixed up to turn into a hot rod, but um, it didn't look like it was still being used as a hearse necessarily. But I saw this hearse sitting over there, and I said, "Hey, you see that thing over there?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "That's how I'm going to leave you. That's the only way I'm going to leave you." And I knew as soon as that came out of my mouth that had to be a song. And so, I got home, I don't know, 20 minutes later, and probably another 40 minutes later, the song was written. And it's just, it's another way, obviously, as people will see when they hear the song, it's just basically, another way of saying, I'm going to love you till I die, that's simple. And, it's one that's got kind of a held out harmony part, kind of a good haunting melody to it, and the players on it again, Moose and some of those guys did such a great job with it. It's one that is definitely close to the heart. So I hope people like it. I guess we'll find out soon enough.
11 studio albums, Ray. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, I don't know how many musicians can boast that many, and your recent amount of creativity. Of course, maybe you wrote these over the course of the last year and a half or so, but it looks like you're versioning, and you're doing this at age 53 or 54, and I guess maybe naively we think it's people in the media think, well, most of this would happen in a guy's 20s or 30s, but you
Yeah.
just seem to be bubbling up.
Well, I think part of it is just that I've always done this for myself. I've always written everything that I record, aside from one project, which was some old covers of old songs I love. When you're the boss of everything, I don't have anybody telling me, "Hey, man, it's time to hang it up," or or man, our research is telling us that people don't want to hear anything from somebody who's over 45, or whatever. I mean, there's all of that stuff, all those analytics that play a role when it comes to commercial country music. And it's funny, man. I remember being 35, 36, 37 years old, promoting my first album and wondering back then if I was getting too old, because this town, or this industry will make you think that, I mean, ageism is a real thing, but, the thing that I found out there, look, as long as people like what you do, and as long as you can continue to come up with stuff that they do like, then you can do this for as long as you want to, as long as God will allow, if you know what I mean. So, and I have, it's funny. I think I hit kind of a sweet spot during COVID, and during the year COVID 2020, I wrote a whole album called "Cover the Earth." Aside from a couple of older songs that I decided to include on it. And this new one is no different. It's all new stuff pretty much, but there's a couple of older songs, on it as well. So I have been doing a lot of writing, and I've liked a lot of the stuff that I've come up with. I feel like I probably turned a corner, 2 or 3 years ago, and just started. I'm not sure what happened or what changed, but it's almost like a new wave of creativity came along, and I have no choice but to ride it and thank God for it. Because I'm telling you, every time you get a case, and I hate to use the word writer's block, but because I think these things come in waves and happen when they're supposed to. But every time a songwriter, especially one that makes a living at it, gets to a point where he might go a few months without an idea, it's kind of a scary thing. You start thinking, man, am I tapped out? Is that all I got? Is that it? Is it over? And thankfully, up to this point, that hasn't been the case. But I will say that I've been a few months now without a new idea, so I'm a little worried right now.
Well, Ray, we don't think you're tapped out by any, stretch of the imagination. And we look forward very much to hearing you this Saturday, September the 2nd at 8 p.m. at the Jackson River Sports Complex in Covington, Virginia. I'm sure you have hundreds of other things to do than talk to the pesky media again. But we sincerely appreciate you taking the time to speak with
at
us.
all, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate you caring.
Yes, sir. You've talked about it in your news release about your parents, and that must have been devastating. Were you close to your dad, just like we all were?
Yeah, man. I mean, and more so in recent years than when I was younger. My dad, he did a couple of tours in Vietnam and had a rough go with it for a while. Had a lot of issues with drinking when I was a kid, and it took me getting older to kind of start understanding some of that and why that was the case. And
that's no joke.
I was able to kind of, maybe forgive him for his lack of I guess being present when I was a kid, but because I understand it, So yeah, we did become closer. My mom was like the salt of the earth, the most angelic woman you'd ever meet, and actually, the highlight for me on this new album coming, man, is there's a song called "I'll See You Again," and my dad left us 3 weeks after my mom did, and the morning of his funeral, I was sitting in a hotel in Roxborough, North Carolina, and I wrote this song, and it was basically just sort of it was something that I wrote for them, for both of them. And wrote the whole thing in probably 30 minutes, and then I sang it at the service later that day, which I'm not sure how I got through it. But
wow, how powerful!
And my little nieces, who were like 16 and 23 or whatever, they came and jumped up there with me and gave me some little angel harmonies, and so I had them come to town, Nashville, about 3 months ago, to sing on the recording of it, and that's on this album, and it's the last song I think on the album, and it's like I say, it's a tribute to them, and so it's definitely the standout for me.